I'm just going to make a quick stop on the way home. And from that moment on, the respective lives of two best friends, Benjamin and Dom, would never, ever, ever be the same again. Swallowed was written and directed by Carter Smith, who did The Ruins. This stars Cooper Koch, Koch. At least I hope I pronounced that correctly. He was in They/Them. A neat little idea, a good cast, and horrible execution. Hopefully, somebody can take that idea and actually make it good one day. So Dom is played by Jose Colon in his debut, and it stars Jenna Malone as Alice, who also was in The Ruins. The Ruins, I don't think gets nearly enough love. I thought it was a neat little idea and showed how you can do some good body horror even as people make monumentally stupid decisions and you have a hard time rooting for some of them, but you're like, hey, this is really fun and kind of gross and everything. And yeah, Carter Smith kind of just takes that idea and puts it more in the fact that, well, there's a gross idea here. In fact, a couple gross ideas. And also it shows how human beings can be really goddamn shit. So the plot, such as it is, you have Benjamin, who's going off to LA to get into the adult film industry. And you have Dom, his friend, who's staying behind. They're having a fun night of drinking debauchery and sharing memories. And basically, Dom says, hey, let's just make a quick stop on the way home. And that was their first mistake. He was going to stop at his cousin's place. His cousin's kind of indisposed. Alice, played by Jenna Malone, says, hey, your cousin isn't doing all that well, but here's what you need to do. You want some money? Well, you need to do this, because Dom had mentioned to Benjamin, hey, I want to give you some money as a going away present, but we got to make this stop. So Alice basically says, there's this stuff in these bags. You have to swallow them, then you have to go through a rest stop border check area, and then you have to crap them out on the other side. You do that, don't damage them, and you get a bunch of money. Naturally, if all that went to plan, then we would have a very short movie. And after a run-in with somebody that, shall we say, was very, 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 very stereotypically homophobic, things start to really, really go south. And we start to find out what actually was in these particular bags. And oh boy, it gets really, really goddamn freaky, and it crawls under your skin, literally, just the mere idea of what it could be, and the mere idea, like, holy shit, there's some actual weird goddamn shit going on here, and some really seedy, shitty people, and it's a small cast movie. It's a very small cast movie, but that actually works in its favor. It focuses on some particular characters that you actually could mostly care about. And from there, we have movie with a little bit of body horror, but also quite a bit of suspense. And showing that there are some shit people out there, and some people that you really shouldn't trust, and you could get wrapped up in the situation you didn't intend. And if only you hadn't made that quick stop, and maybe you had just stayed on the straight and narrow, you would have been able to go off to LA and make your adult films and stuff like that, and break into the industry. So I gotta say that while I do have a couple issues with this movie, minor issues, this actually may end up being one of my favorite films of the year, because Swallowed takes a good idea and preys on the fears of many. Like, I mean, sure, the whole drug smuggling thing, all that, it plays up on fear more than it actually shows anything. I mean, there are a couple of things that it does reveal eventually, but it's more of a tell, don't show movie. And for the most part, that works. I will say that Jose Colon actually does a really good job in his debut. I look forward to seeing what else he can do. Jenna Malone, I've loved since The Ruins, and I wish he'd get more meaty roles. Cooper Koch actually does a pretty good job here. And also, there's another guy, Mark Patton. Not to be confused with Will Patton, because they're entirely different people. He shows up a little bit later, and it just centers around four particular people in a good way. In a good way where you just see how disgusting a couple particular people are. And yes, it takes a ridiculous premise, but actually adds a little bit of humanization to it, and shows how far somebody would go to protect somebody they care about, protect themselves, and all that. Yeah, the writing isn't always crisp. There are a few moments where I'm like, okay, this is unintentionally hilarious. Maybe that was the idea. And a few things don't quite land, but Carter Smith absolutely nails it. The acting is very, very good. And the reveals work for the most part. It is a slow burn movie. It is the definition of a slow burn movie. It takes some time to get going. And even when certain things start happening, you're like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And then it pulls away from that. And it doesn't do it in a bad way. Yes, there are some gross parts, some pretty goddamn gross parts, some full-on male nudity. If you're into that, that's good. If you're grossed out by that, too bad. Watch the goddamn movie. The movie's actually quite enjoyable. But that's basically what the movie ends up being without getting into spoilers. So I'm going to get into that. It's on Amazon for a few bucks if you want to check it out. But yeah, it proves that maybe sometimes you should listen to your gut instinct before your gut instinct turns to goddamn shit because you swallowed something that, well, nature and God did not intend for you to swallow. So that's pretty much it right there. Now I'm going to get into spoilers, but check it out on Amazon if you want. Good acting, good atmosphere. Yeah, a couple minor issues, pacing and stuff like that, but it was what it was. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. Okay, so basically the drugs that are smuggled, it turns out that there's actually some kind of weird bug. It's similar to like licking toads to get high, but these bugs, you harness their ability to give people the sensation of feeling comfortably numb, but you can't feel anything, but it makes your dick hard for 9 hours. There's a little bit of inconsistency there. So Jenna Malone is a little bit over the top here as far as her character. I don't mean her acting, but just as far as her character, like when the cousin is clearly screwed up, like she can't like do anything, just like something bad happened. Jenna Malone basically threatens both of them, like, hey, you need to swallow this stuff. You can't damage it. Don't get them damaged at all. They manage to get across the border. They're obviously not feeling well because they ingested shit. And then they get to a rest stop bathroom. And then there's this one guy who comes in that decides to be the most stereotypical homophobe ever. He ends up punching Dom in the gut. And then Benjamin ends up basically kind of pseudo running him off or whatever. The guy pops their tires, and they aren't able to basically get away from the rest stop area. Benjamin, by the way, is also, because he's in the adult film industry, and because of, I don't even say the over-the-top nature, just the obvious nature of the character, he's gay, and that's where the homophobia comes in. And then Alice manages to get both of them, while, well, let's just say Dom is just totally fucked because he got punched in the gut. They eventually can get the stuff out where even Alice gets them to this like outpost area after they get across the rest stop border check area. Alice basically says, you probably have more experience with this. Now get down and get your fucking hand up his ass to get all this stuff out. Now Benjamin also swallowed one of these. Bear that in mind. And it's the worst proctology exam ever. Actually, the second worst I've seen on the internet. You don't want to know about the first. And then Mark Patton, a.k.a. Rich, the boss, shows up. Well, let's just say after a little bit, he decides, hey, Alice, just go away. Don't worry. Maybe I'll pay you later. Maybe I won't. But this has gone south because some of the merchandise has been damaged. And then Alice has a change of heart. But then she gets shot off screen. And Dom also dies because, oh yeah, he's ingested some drugs that are bugs that are really fucking with his system. I would have liked it actually if it would have turned him into a bit of an undead type creature or something. I think that might have added a little spice to the movie, but I understood why they went with the humanization route. And then Rich decides to be full on creepy because he's very over the top gay, but almost seemingly one of those self-hating gay men. And he says, hey, get in this bath, Benjamin, and that way you can get the stuff out, and I'll give you drinks, and I'll massage you and be really gross. And just, it's only gross if you're taking advantage of somebody. I just want to say that right there. And that's basically what he was doing. And he talks about living in L.A., and he knew who people were. Somebody didn't know who Barbara Streisand or Grace Jones was. Nobody was named Sam, so they didn't make the pants too long. If you get that, you get that. And yeah, it's basically about how people will take advantage of others, almost an allegory for what Benjamin is going to go through being in the adult film industry. And then he tries on a jacket that Rich has. He pulls something out, stabs Rich either behind the ear or something. I don't actually quite know. And he runs away in the jacket and his underwear. He can't get in a car because he doesn't have the right keys. So he manages to hide like near some cliff area. Now, Alice is dead. She was shot off screen. And there's this outhouse where Rich decides to dump Jenna Malone's body down there. Um, and then, well, let's just say that Ben has had enough, chokes out Rich. Well, he chokes him out enough, threatens him with a gun, and managed to get that thing out of his ass while on that cliff. And it's a bug, it's alive, and he has the bug bite Rich. So Rich is comfortably numb, but he can't move. This seems like a very bad drug to take, by the way, unless you can really trust your partner to make sure that you don't die. That was a bit of a weird moment there. And then he has the bug bite Rich, and then he dumps Rich's body down the outhouse chute. And then that's it. It just ends. And then we get a mid-credit sequence where Benjamin's at the Adult Film Awards, Squirty Awards, I think is what they called it. And it's just all happy and everything's okay and whatever. And it's just, this movie's bizarre. The movie's good, though. It has better pacing than The Ruins. Since it was a smaller cast, there was less yelling, less stupidity. I mean, there was stupidity in this. Like, why the fuck would you do that? Why would you not, I don't know, race away and just say, hey, I'll come back and get my cousin later or something. Just whatever. And yeah, some of the acting, while good, there were a few over-the-top moments where I'm like, I'm not necessarily certain that was needed. But it gets an A- because it was actually quite good. Carter Smith, let's see what else he can do. Good job by the cast. So anyway, agree, disagree with what I said. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Wetland. I'll see you soon.